Hey, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
And welcome to the morning show. Glad to have you joining us today. Yeah.
I'm excited. Today's like autumn. It's like cold and chilly outside. I had to find a jacket to wear.
That's true. Yeah, you're probably like us. You don't have your heat on yet. So you woke up this morning. It's a little bit chilly.
I mean, it's not like technically jacket weather, but like I'm so desperate to wear a jacket that like I will look for any excuse to wear
Yeah,
one.
all our kids threw hoodies on and headed off to school.
It is excellent hoodie wear. Hey, speaking of hoodies, so
Wait, what's growing in your coffee cup?
oh, come on. All right, so this is from my father-in-law. He sent these like really cool. Here, I can put it
Your
over
father-in-law sent you this?
here. Yeah.
I don't. I think he's trolling you.
So, probably. He's that kind of guy. I wouldn't put it past him. So Epcot has this, trigger warning for those who are still boycotting Disney. This is a 2020. They do a garden thing for Epcot, and so this is actually a coffee mug, but it's also a planter random thing. And here's your hidden Mickey for your Disney fans on the morning show. That we do have hidden Mickeys. Well, this one really isn't hidden.
We have hidden Mickeys. What does that mean?
Downplayed that a lot.
Downplayed what?
The Epcot garden.
Garden international thing.
Yeah,
That's because they serve wine, and we're a Baptist show.
That's like a huge thing. Like it's not.
Oh, is it?
Oh my goodness, yeah. That's
Wow.
like a huge thing. So.
I am a company man, so I have my First Baptist Heath mug.
Company man.
Support.
It's because you know the senior pastor.
The idiot. All right, so what are we actually talking about today? Before everybody turns this off.
Well, I did want to pique your interest because on Sunday there was a battle happening between good versus evil.
This is something I wish I had known. I have no idea what you're about to say.
Yep, I know. That's the fun part of the show. And a certain quarterback left the Patriots, played his first game as Buccaneers. So the question being, did the Saints win or did Brady lose?
Yeah, way to go right into the fire.
Yep.
On
Yep.
hot topic. So
Where's the line?
I'm not really. I'm sort of following football, but I'm not really advertising it in light of some of the things that are going on in our
Fair
world
enough.
today.
Fair enough.
But
But I feel this is a general pop culture kind
general
of
pop culture, yeah. So we're
Brady-
not supporting the NFL right now
No.
in that regards. Yeah, I think Brady's done. To be honest, I think it's over. He's 43 years old. I think it's time to hang it up. I think New England shifted at the perfect time, so I think they knew what they were doing.
All right, so
And
next
Belichick, we trust.
hot topic thing to throw to Pastor Dave, see how well he handles this one, because that was definitely handled, by the way.
And we're waiting for Buckeye football now. I think they were supposed to decide
Hold your
like
breath.
yesterday if they were.
I
when
thought
they're
they
playing.
not, like the chancellor was like, no, we're not playing. But there's a possibility. There's still
Yeah. I think like they were talking like Thanksgiving-ish.
real football's already been scheduled, so the SEC's playing. So
A week from Saturday.
Yeah, War Eagle, very excited. I ran into somebody who had a Bama T-shirt at City Barbecue Sunday. It was like,
Did you? Never mind. I was gonna say something really mean, but I decided not to.
I did say War Eagle to them, so I'm proper. So there was a huge travesty that happened in our house last night when I was looking through the news and doing some random show prep for the show. It turns out that we are not going to have Halloween or Christmas peeps because of the pandemic.
Wait a minute.
My wife dropped her bowl of popcorn. when
There's
she found this
Halloween
out.
peeps. I thought Easter was the only peeps.
Oh, ye of little faith. Yes, there is Halloween, like awesome random jack-o'-lantern ones, and they have like Christmas tree peeps every year, and because they have to shut down the factory and they have to retool everything, like they said we will not get them until next year. There will be no specialized peeps until Easter.
Wow. I mean, I'm okay. The peeps are just a bunch of sugar.
They're gross.
Gross.
Hey, here we go.
We're not including the candy corn comment.
Yeah, candy corn.
Is that what?
Let's see. Do you like candy corn? Yes or no? Let us know in the comments. Your take on candy. What is your position on candy corn?
There's a meme going around about like the best way to eat candy corn is open up the package, pour it into the garbage can, and eat a Reese's.
Eat a Reese's.
Yeah.
All right, Reagan. Yay or nay on candy corn?
It's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's a no.
All right.
I'm extremely pro candy corn.
Really? What about the pumpkins?
Not so
Yeah, they're like too much.
And Brock's specifically. Like Brock's is the best
Oh,
brand.
of course you would be snobby about your candy corn.
Now, all candy corn, or because there's some that has the
No,
different
traditional. Yellow
What's the
ones,
other?
like-
There's like different colors.
There's like a chocolate candy corn. I think.
Oh yeah, that's different. That's
Yeah. No.
yeah.
Okay.
Yay or nay on candy
Traditional-
corn.
Here, there's this random thing that my in-laws do where they actually take peanuts and they mix it with their candy corn, and it's this amazing mixture. Yeah, the sweet and salty, but you got to get that peanut to candy corn ratio, and if that's done right, I'm all in favor of it. Otherwise, give me the Reese's peanut butter cup.
No Reese's peanut.
Because it's like fruitcake. There's only so much candy corn that's ever been made in existence, and it just keeps getting passed around. That's my theory.
I'm not really a fan of. So I don't necessarily like candy corn, but it's addictive. Like if there was like
It's
a
addictive.
selection of candies, I would not select candy corn. But when it's there, you just like can't. It's just like pure sugar, I think, is what it is.
Pure honey.
That's what it is. It's honey.
It's honey?
Yeah.
No, it's cornstarch. It's candy corn. It's
It's
gotta be
corn-
corn syrup,
it's-
not cornstarch.
Yeah, but honey is the main sweetener.
All right, we actually gonna do something today. So let us know in the comments. We're looking to find out what
Are you pro candy corn?
and we will check back after the interview to see how many are pro candy corn and how many are anti candy corn. And the chocolate candy corn is definitely the best, I would say, because it
You
just
just-
adds a little bit.
Being contrarian. Or do you legitimately like the chocolate candy corn?
Yeah, no, I do. Yeah, my wife is fall, like what your wife is to Christmas. My wife is to fall.
Oh.
So-
how many pumpkin candles are lit in the house right now?
All of them, that's for sure.
Your house is lit.
Yeah, so Hobby Lobby, like their fourth quarter
Right.
earnings report is
Right.
based upon us.
So you pay the Hobby Lobby tax. Like that's
Yeah, pretty much.
that's a permanent
Yeah.
that little 40% coupon there. Like I don't even understand why they make it hidden. Like everyone uses it when they go to checkout. It ought to just be like your first purchase is 40% off. Like everybody knows about that coupon, but
And you know, like I'm thinking coupons. Go. You want to like have a challenge. Here's a challenge. Go to Kohl's and find something not on sale. It's the only store that I've ever been in. Everything in the store is on sale all the time.
besides Hobby Lobby. Hobby Lobby always has everything on sale.
No, not like Kohl's though. Everything
Really?
is on sale.
But they have Kohl's Cash.
Ronnie Martin.
All right, let's get to Ronnie Martin. He is like leaving. He's like, I'm
So-
out of here.
We will ask Pastor Ronnie Martin from Substance Church in Ashland, Ohio. We were very glad to have him to be a legitimate, true friend of the show. So right out of the gate, hot take, sir. What is your? Are you pro candy corn or are you nay candy corn?
Yeah, I'm pro candy corn as long as I don't have to eat it. But I
Mm,
I like it to. I like it in the house. My wife loves it.
you
No.
like it in the house.
It sort of represents the spirit of the holiday.
So you like the idea of
Yeah,
candy?
the aroma, the atmosphere that candy corn brings.
That's the best way to do
Bowls
it.
of candy corn all over the house. I'm totally good with it. And in a weak moment, I'll probably eat some of it, but it's definitely not my first choice.
That's the most politically correct answer I've ever heard about candy corn.
I aim to please someone.
Aim to please someone. That is fantastic, motto. That's my personal motto now. Sir, thank you so much for coming on the show this morning. You are a man of many talents. Obviously, you're a CCM recording artist. You've now a church planting pastor. You have a podcast. So there are a bevy of things God has called you to do. So one of the questions I've been wanting to hear about is, how did you go from the music industry into church planting?
Yeah. Well, thanks for all those nice words.
I expect a check in the mail, sir.
Accurate or true. Nobody's that great, right? It was one of those things where, it's a long and winding road. I think this was
Beatles
back
Rock's a good one.
15 to 20 years ago when still signed to tooth and nail, still making records, still touring most weekends, and God put me, my wife, my daughter into a really solid church, and there were some pastors there that really took an interest in me and started some mentoring relationships with me. And it was sort of that time that God really started kind of pulling me into ministry in a really kind of odd way. So I wasn't happy about it, and these doors just continued to open. And so I was kind of living this dual life where I was getting my feet into ministry, and but I was still really actively involved in the music industry. And then so at some point I find myself serving the church, and I'm running this big digital sound console, and I'm not a live sound guy, and I'm learning how to do all this crazy stuff that I'm super unhappy about. And so that, years into that, and before I know it, I'm up on the stage leading worship. And years into that, I'm on staff at a church, and I'm in seminary, and God's given me this desire to preach. And yeah, it's like everything else. One thing leads to the other, and before you know it, you're neck deep into all of these things that it felt like 10 minutes before you were saying, I am not doing any of that, and so yeah, so that's probably the shortest version of the story I've ever told. And we are on a podcast, so we don't have all day, but yeah, it was a strange thing. The church planting thing is interesting in the sense that God, from the very beginning of my ministry experience, God always put me around church planners. These were the people that always seemed drawn to me for some reason. And so I didn't choose them; they chose me. And you roll with that how you will. And so I found myself around church planners for years and years, just sort of observing them. And I was kind of entrepreneurial myself in the things that I did.
Sure.
And these were guys that at some point started asking me, like, so when do you think you're going to plant a church, Ronnie? And I said, well, the answer to that is never. And years go by, and we relocate to Ohio. And again, I find myself in a room full of church planners, just always with these guys. And at some point, God did a work there. We started praying about it, and it turned out that I became an accidental, I would call it, church planner. And, here I am all these years later, having planted a couple of churches. So to answer your question, I don't know. It just happened,
I love the part of your story where it's just, particularly you mentioned about being in a really awesome godly church, and then God had surrounded you with church planners, and there's something about like being in the body of believers has that accountability and the fertile ground to grow and do these things. And I think it's a really good plug for people who are on the edge with some of this pandemic stuff of like engaging in church or disengage in church. And I think your testimony has a really good punch there for, hey, you need to be in a community of believers, because God can do some amazing stuff when you're in that community.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, the music industry is a weird space, and I was in it really heavily for 20 to 25 years. And
so you started when you were 7.
I almost did. And but the tendency with all of the playing and the recording is to really remove yourself from fellowship. And that's always a temptation, because you are pulled in so many different directions. And by God's grace, we were always connected to a church, and God really just used that. Eventually, again, like I said, drawing us to a church where some of our theology was finally challenged, shaped, and reformed. And so I think just having that really close connection to the local body is key for sure. It was key for me.
So you went from California, right, which has all of its fun and trappings, to the middle of nowhere, Ohio. And we're, for those who don't know where we are, we're only about, I don't know, an hour away from each other, outside of Columbus. So what are some of the challenges of that, right? Like when we think of church planting, a lot of times it's like, the big city, let's go to New York or Portland or, Texas, or I don't know, Dallas, whatever. Like
Texas isn't a city, but keep going.
You're
Yeah,
right. Sorry, that was my Sarah Palin moment.
Dallas.
Africa's a country. So what's it like? What are some of the unique things, the blessings, the challenges of church planting in rural America?
Yeah, man. So I didn't, we've been in Ohio 10 years. We didn't move out here originally to church plant. We moved out here to be part of another ministry. And then, God was just, he had been doing all this work that we didn't realize even before we moved here. Then when we got here, finishing up some seminary stuff and just, again, being around church planners. And it was something very unexpected for us. And I think relocating from California and the culture there to small town Ohio's, kind of university culture. It was something I was only familiar with given all the traveling I did over the years. And so I had kind of a romantic view about, kind of the small town life. And I always desired it. And so we had an opportunity to relocate. We took it. And then we found out, oh, this is way different. It's way different to visit than it is to live in it.
Is that like Green
And
Acres? Was that kind of like your experience?
what's that?
Was that like Green Acres, right? Like,
Yeah,
okay.
pretty much. Pretty much. So, and I mean, honestly, you guys, I mean, I'm still figuring a lot of it out. It was, born and raised in SoCal, very different experience. And so there's been a lot of learning. There's been a lot of humbling things. But there is a massive blessing to it. I think church planning in general, small town church planning, I think there's a lot of upsides to it. And so I think the fact that God used this as our introduction to church planning, I think it was a grace, because although there are challenges, there are less challenges, I think, in some ways than if you're going into a suburban or more urban environment. And really the pace of the town, everything is very slow. The whole push of being fast and furious and getting everything going as quickly as you can, it just doesn't exist here. And so people actually are more comfortable if you take things, at a slower, less progressive pace. And that was good for me as somebody getting into something that I didn't know much about and I needed time to develop. So I think that was definitely been some of the upsides to it for sure.
That's interesting. Just the pacing difference. I wouldn't have thought about that, but that's it. So, what are some of the other like kind of contextual things like that you've realized church planning in a small?
I think for me, it's because of what I came from. Southern California it was an interesting place in that it's very driven by materialism and the weekend. Everybody, nobody really saves their money. They spend their money, or they invest their money in toys and things that they can sell to buy different toys. And really the mentality of that, of the West Coast is, it's Monday morning and you have one goal, and that's just to get to Friday afternoon so that you can get out of town and you can start playing again. And so working is just a means to an end to, to sort of, to get to that sort of recreational element of your life. Here, it's just way different. In a sense, it's all really security, right? It all ends in the same place, but people in California spend money. That's their security. They gather lots of toys and things. That's a security to them. Here, it was the opposite. So you get here and everybody has like their main job and 5 other jobs around it. They all brag that they haven't taken a day off in 4 years, and they just work and they work and they work. And there's sort of a frugal, mindset here where it's just save, save, save. And so again, it all ends in the same place, which is like trying to find security in something that's not incredibly secure. But everybody gets there a different way. And so I think for me, when I first came here, it was trying to figure that out. Like you're getting to this thing a different way, and it doesn't make sense to me. And so I think God had to really grow me in just sort of an understanding of how people what people value and how they sort of build into those values. So I don't know, that was one of the big challenges actually when we first got out here. So
No, it's interesting. It sounds a lot like I think the missionary experience, right? You go to a foreign country and everyone's valuing things differently. The interaction, the social patterns are different, and so to some extent, it sounds like you had some of that to go through as well.
Yeah, and we're a
yeah,
big. I mean, the United States is a big country, and in some you have different cultures, throughout the country. And Midwest, I mean, Ohio, we're sort of blended Midwest. Yeah, and it's got kind of its own culture, distinct from the South, the Northeast, the West Coast. So,
Yeah, how did you deal with? Because I'm from the South, the Gulf Coast area, and when I came up here and someone gave me a plate of mashed potatoes with noodles and chicken over top of it, it was really weird. Like, how did you deal with that coming from California?
Um, I just tried not to be so snobby.
Thank you, thank you.
throw Rob under
Shots
the
fired.
bus.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
No, my wife is a bit like my wife's kind of a she cooks. She loves to cook. It's one of her like big things. And so um yeah, so you know, I should probably shut up, but it was we like to eat and yeah, we like to eat. We like to my wife is in specifically likes to experiment with cooking and all that kind of stuff. So it was that was man, you nailed it right there. I mean, I think you captured it with your snarky comment. So
Snark is many of the things that I benefit my people with. Things, sometimes my mouth actually works and can put sentences together. um, so one of the other things I think that's really important for us to kind of talk about is church planning. Not only does it benefit the community that you're church planning in, right? And you're gathering new believers and you're expanding God's kingdom. But I really wanted to pick your brain about how does it benefit the established church, the existing church? Like, how do they benefit from participating in church planning?
yeah, I think that's a great question. I think what planning I think fundamental thing, the obvious thing is that it reminds the people that of the mission, right, of the church, which is that we're supposed to not really necessarily grow tall, but we're supposed to grow wide. We're supposed to
Right.
push out and move out. And I think when you're a church planting church, and that is something that is being taught and caught really from the people, I think it forces them to not become so attached and then gripped by tradition, because at some point, they know that, part of the value of the church is that we want to expand out. We want the gospel to reach out. And that's going to change the culture of the church over the years, because you're going to have different people that come in and are very committed to the church, and then they are going to leave to help plant a new church. And so I think it creates a particular kind of healthy church culture, in that it gives people eyes for the lost. It keeps them a little more in the lane of mission, and it really allows tradition to not be what rules the church, which can be really damaging, to a church, as we've seen. And it also, I think, in some practical ways, it really helps a church have a better understanding of where money's going, where it should be going, about budgets, and it keeps the church a little more fluid, rather than just becoming maybe a little more hardened and a little more self-protective. It kind of opens them up and saying, hey, again, what is it that we're doing here? Well, we eventually, we always have our eyes on going wide rather than building tall, and it forces our hearts to become a little more softer and a little more tender and a little more open to change. I think those would be some things, I think.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, anytime we're living on mission and we're really actively doing what we're supposed to be doing, it stretches us. I mean, it challenges our ideas and our opinions and our thoughts, and it times makes us uncomfortable, which is a good thing to have a lot of times. So.
I remember you talked about growing. I think it was Neil Cole in his book Organic Church talked about like a cell that grows is called a tumor, but when it multiplies, that's a healthy cell. And it reminded me of that in what you're talking about in a healthy church context.
Yeah, I think exactly right. It keeps us from getting so internally focused, and we can just become just be so overwhelmingly internally focused and all about us and our stuff and whatever. Yeah, and church planting kind of no, we're a channel to be giving and pushing out and doing more, not just all about us. So that's good.
I know part of the Substance Church, you guys, you've already planted another campus, correct?
Yeah, we about 3 years in, yeah, we planted another church in Worcester, which is about 20, 25 minutes east. Yeah, yeah.
That's so. I mean, what was that like? Because I think traditionally, I mean, and even in my mindset, it was just like, oh, we have to get to this certain spot, be 5, 10 years into this, be established, be comfortable. Okay, now we'll go ahead and do the multiplication process. Um, so what was that like? I mean, that kind of pushes against that for you guys to be 3 years in and go ahead and all right, let's go to Worcester and expand the kingdom.
Yeah, man, it was something we were committed to even from the very beginning. And so part of our prayer was, Lord, we don't even know how to do what we're doing right now. So the only thing we can think of is to pray that if we have these surrounding areas nearby that are all within 20 minutes. And so our prayer was, if you could just bring us some people from those areas that hear about us, start coming to our church, maybe that would give us sort of a foot into their communities and we could start something out there. And sure enough, about a year in, some families from Worcester just started attending. They invited other families. We're able to form a couple community groups out in that area. And before we knew it, we just had enough people out there to where it was, well, yeah, you can't keep commuting 25 minutes. We got to get something started out there. And so in 2016, that's what we did. So I was bouncing back and forth. We started with a Sunday night service. So we'd do our thing in Ashland in the morning, and then we would have a crew that headed out there, and we were at I think an elementary school, and we would just set everything up and do everything on Sunday night. And then that grew to a point to where we could finally hire a guy about a year later to kind of move there and kind of take it over full time. So yeah, but it was challenging for sure. I mean, it was definitely one of the most exhausting years of my life, no doubt. And yeah, it was something else. And certainly, we had a church here in Ashton that was still growing and building, and then we had something there that again we were it was stretching us, and so it was messy, and we grew a lot through it. And God definitely did a work there through all the stretching and the exhaustion and the madness of it all.
You talked about like there was a little bit of like ignorance and like we didn't really know what we were doing. Like how much of that is like a benefit of not having the entrappings and tradition or cultural expectation to like this is what we have to do to get to that point? Was that, I know it could be a blessing and a curse, but like it sounds like to some extent it was helpful for you guys.
Yeah, I think so. I think what you find out, this is what I've found. I'd love to hear your experience, but what I've found in all of my years of ministry is that at the end of the day, actually, nobody knows what they're doing. And even the people that are writing the books, they're just writing down what they're all aspirational, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we can say, hey, we're going to start at A, go B, C, D, E. And then you get in there and God just goes, I mean, that's cute, but I'm gonna mix it up so much and shake it up so much that all of your fun little plans to sort of go, in sequence with all of these things. I just, that's not how I operate. And it's going to make you feel like you have your game down, which is never the goal, which is never the aim.
Right.
And so I think God just humbles us because he mixes it up. And and if we actually read scripture, we find that to be 100% true. There is no formula. And as soon as we think we have a formula, I think God looks down and goes, well, that's just so insane that they feel. So yeah, so in a way, I think if you can embrace, again, that doesn't mean that we don't try to plan things and do our best, but I think if we can embrace, there is going to be twists and turns and just compounded messiness. I think in some ways it can help us sleep better at night, right? Because it's like, God did not call us to try to manage manage anything at the end of the day, but just to be obedient, be faithful, and do our best within just the mess that is church and church planting and people. So
Yeah, I mean, there's the old Mike Tyson quote: "Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth." You know, and yeah, I mean, if you look at the New Testament, I mean, you look at these churches Paul planted, they're a mess, right? I mean, there's issues and messiness and problems, and so if we think it's got to look perfect to be God's will, I mean, that's not the case at all. I mean, God works through the messiness and uses the messiness um, in great ways. So,
amen. Church planting is just a disaster.
that's gonna be it. We're
Just
gonna get a T-shirt. Church planning is a disaster. Ronnie Martin. I like that'll be.
We're gonna make
That'll be
our
the
own
first
swag.
morning
Yes.
show T-shirt right there.
Thank you, sir. I mean, so kind of along the same lines, one of the questions we also wanted to ask you and pick your brain about is people think they have to have it all together. They have to know everything before they church plant. So what do you think are some other myths or misconceptions people kind of give or excuses to prevent them from engaging in church planting?
I think it's scary. It's like it really is like traveling to through uncharted territory, because as much as you try to design it and put it together and arrange it, and like I said, formalize it, the thing has a life of its own in some ways, and I really believe that's the Lord, who doesn't allow it to come together and to grow and come to fruition in the same way. So I think because of the nature of it and the uncharted territory nature of it, it scares a lot of pastors. I think also if you're losing a lot of people when you church plant. So I think J.D. Greer talks about that a lot, because they have this. He has this church planting game down, in terms of them being a large church and just committed. That's really what they do. And they lose just a chunk of leaders every time they do it, and really faithful, devoted, committed people every time they send a team out. And I think that there's a fear in that, and I think it's risky. Church planting by definition is it is a risk. We're embarking on something of which the statistics are not great, and there's so many churches that are planted that don't make it.
Right.
And think about all the time and the effort and the resources that go into something that has a pretty high quote unquote failure rate. I think that causes a lot of churches and pastors to pull back and go, well, hold on, let's wait until we can do it to minimize the risk. But then you get to that certain part of church life and ministry where you're probably less prone to do it if you're too many years in. So I think there's a lot of those factors involved. In a lot of ways, it really is like just kind of diving in, really, and saying. So for us, it was like, we know we're not ready to do this, but if we continue to wait. There's a better chance we're not going to do it. So we really dove in at a place that I would say we weren't ready to do it, but then what's ready? Define ready. Right. And so again, there's no stats out there that you can grab a hold of that says, well, when you wake up on this day and all of these pieces are in place, you're ready to go. So I think it's just a really difficult and risky thing, and you have to trust the Lord, and you have to say, this is what we're committed to, and you have to dive in, and be willing to risk. So
that's a good word, to be comfortable with the risk, right? To jump out and trust that God is going to do what He says He's going to do. Yeah, that's good. So, sir, we are moving to the end of our interview. This is my favorite spot because I get to make people squirm a little bit in their seat. So this is called Fast Five, where I'm going to ask you 5 completely unrelated questions to what we just talked about. Are you ready?
Think so.
Okay.
Throw it.
So we briefly highlighted before that you are a CCM artist. You've done many things in the music business. I did want to ask you, this is not one of your Fast Five questions, but I was really curious about what was your rider. Like, did you have the blue M&Ms or did you have something funky in there? Like, that's unrelated, and we can talk about that later, but all right, so here is your first question, sir. What is the best breakup song?
Oh, I blank out whenever anybody asks me about songs and movies.
This may not go well.
Hey, is there a best breakup song? Wouldn't that be like worst breakup song? I'll say I'm gonna, I'm an '80s guy, so I'm gonna go with "Somebody" from Depeche Mode.
Depeche Mode, nice. Very appreciative of that. All right. So this kind of goes into your wheelhouse of listening to music. Name one album that you can listen to without skipping a song.
Oh man, that would be ironically a best of collection from a band called New Order called Substance.
Wow.
We just found out where you named your church.
Nice plug there.
He just nods.
No comment.
It's a random question because nowadays, like, we all listen to Spotify and Apple Music, so you pick songs randomly. Nobody really listens to albums anymore, but
Yeah, I still listen to albums, so I've never listened to Spotify before. I've never done it, so I'm old school. Yeah.
purist.
I don't-
So at danger of infringing upon something you've said you don't like to do, what movie would be improved if it became a musical?
Oh man. Man, that's a great question. What movie would be improved if it was a musical? How about Tenet by Christopher Nolan?
Wait, what movie?
Tenet.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Now the question though, right? Does the music play backwards, right? If
Right,
it's a
yeah,
musical,
yeah.
or does it just random?
That is the question.
We can
With
pause and just stop on all the holes in Tenet that don't make sense.
We do not have enough time for
We
this.
do not have enough time.
Question number 4, sir. What is the worst song to be stuck in your head?
Oh man. Gosh. Any like old soulful bluesy record, like Sitting by the Dock of the Bay, or one of the I hate those songs so much. And gosh, I'm gonna get in trouble for all of this, but
Not a fan
Yeah.
of Otis Redding. Wow. I thought you might have gone like as a parent, like in my house, I hate that. It's Raining Tacos song.
Oh,
okay.
My
Yeah.
kids play that over and over again, and now I'm walking down the hall. It's rain.
yeah.
Well, my kid is really old now because I'm old, and I'm thinking back to some of the things she listened to back in the day. Right, it was like, I don't know, Hannah Montana and stuff like that.
Oh.
But some of those songs were good, so like I didn't mind listening to some of that stuff, But I don't know. It's like I really hate I really hate blues music. So anything that sort of goes into that territory, it's like, oh please, it just needs to end.
I'm curious, what are you gonna get more in trouble for? Throwing shade on Otis Redding or approving Hannah Montana songs? Like, those are two different.
The Otis Redding thing will probably destroy me from somebody, but I just don't like it. I don't like it.
Huh? It's fair enough. Fair enough. All right, so this one hopefully will get a little heat because Pastor Chad is a huge fan of music. Obviously, he's a worship pastor. In a band, who is the most underrated member?
Oh man, it for sure has to be the drummer because number one, they're technically not musicians.
Yes. You built Pastor Chad up. He was like, "Yes, drummer," and you're like, "That was."
I can only say that because I am a drummer. But I think, a bad drummer, it doesn't matter how good the rest of the band is, but a drummer that is just not in sync ruins everything. And a really solid drummer will make the rest of the band, if they're not incredibly tight, he just makes them all sound better. So I really think it's, in terms of just like a modern rock combo kind of a setup, the drummer really is the key guy, I think.
I think, for me, and I agree, I will hold her, not just because you're a special guest, but my favorite drummer to watch is the drummer for the Rolling Stones. Because you've got Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, they're all dancing around doing whatever random hip gyrations, and you've got this like 85-year-old guy in the back just keeping time.
Yeah.
It's the funniest thing in the world to watch. So
Yeah, he's like a drum machine. He barely does drum fills. He just lifts his hand off the hi-hat every time he hits the snare. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, somehow.
I mean, you've
he
got like Neil Peart and then this guy. I don't even know this guy's name. I should like pay attention to who he is, but like, right? Two different.
It's Charlie, right? Charlie. I'm not a Stones fan, so I don't know. I mean, we all have phones. We don't need to wonder things anymore. So, I don't know. Yeah, good question.
Well, we have exhausted my drummer knowledge here, so we will move to the end. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on the show. Obviously, big shout out to everybody at Substance Church. Great stuff happening there in Worcester and Ashland. For those of you who have no idea about the Happy Rant podcast, clearly you're a friend of the show. So please go check out the Happy Rant podcast, what they're doing. Ronnie Martin's also a great author. Check out his books on Amazon. Anything else we need to plug for you, sir? New album coming out. Sorry.
Already over.
We want your head to be huge, trying to fit through the door behind you. That is our job.
I don't need any help with that, but thanks.
Well, thank you so much, sir. We will let you go. Thanks for coming on the show, sir.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Blessings.
All right, it's good. A little bit, some profitable talk about church planning there when we got you off music. So
some profitable, yeah. I really appreciate bringing Ronnie Martin in, because as someone who had all the trappings of SoCal, California, I'm sure he was part of a really nice established church there in California. The expectation would be, let's play in California, let's stay somewhere, let's go to some exciting city. And no shade on Ashland and Worcester, Ohio, at all. But it's just, obviously it shows the sovereignty of God, but it's just really cool to hear his story, like, to do that. Small town church planting is important, and we should do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right. There's a tendency to emphasize the cities and the suburbs, and obviously there's population base there, so that's part of the strategy. But at the same time, every person matters for the gospel, and so if there's a town of 10 people, they need to have access to the gospel. And so there's a huge need. I mean, there's towns around us that don't really have a vibrant gospel preaching church. There might be, we're in Ohio, so it's not like, there's probably something there that's a Bible believing church, but it may not really be something that is active and reaching the community. It may just be something that's sort of existing and declining, to be honest. And so, there's huge needs in these smaller towns, not even necessarily super tiny towns. I mean, just in some of these smaller surrounding towns in central eastern Ohio. So
I think it's a great point. Like, if there is a pocket of lostness, we need to be engaging in, regardless of where it is, because God has called us to bring the gospel to them. And church planting will change any community, whether it's 5 million people in New York City or the 500 people in the middle of wherever Midwest.
Yeah, and I like how you talked about it's changing the mentality, the culture, I think, of the church, and really forcing you to be mission focused. I mean, you're doing it, so you're mission focused. I mean, it's not just talk, it's not just theoretical. This is getting done. So that was very good, and appreciate that he's doing it in a normal context. Maybe put it that way. Like, it's not, JD Greer can come on and talk about church planting at the Summit Church. When you've got 12,000 people and $20 million budget, and I mean, you put a sign out front and 200 people show up, right? I mean, but Ronnie Martin's talking about doing it in rural Ohio. right in the nitty gritty, right in the messiness of it, which is really awesome and encouraging.
So way to go, Substance Church. Keep doing all the awesome stuff God is calling you guys to do. So we've got some fun stuff coming up on the show before we sign off.
Yeah, next week is American Gospel, right?
Here. We're excited to plug American Gospel and get to talk to the creative team behind it. And it'll be really, they got a ton of great people on there. So first we're going to pick his brain, like, how did you wrangle all these people? Theologians are notorious for being like herding cats. And they're doing some other projects as well, kind of continuing this conversation about what is the real gospel versus the cultural gospel that we have crafted here in America. So it'd be fun to hear about the new projects that are coming up for that. And then the following week, we will talk to
Dr. Jason Allen, president of Midwestern Seminary, will be on. So I'm
excited because Midwestern, they have this whole Spurgeon Center library thing, right?
Yeah, and you're just hoping to get a Spurgeon bobblehead.
Yes, I am. I need more swag. But there's just something because Spurgeon was gruff around the collar. There were things that Spurgeon is known for that if he was a pastor, Southern Baptist pastor, whatever, in 21st century, there's
he suffered severe depression.
Yeah,
smoked cigars. Workaholic, I think. Had lots of medical issues. Tons of medical, but was also an incredibly gifted speaker.
I know,
an orator.
He's like a modern day, you go through the Old Testament and you see all of these flawed characters, and we always put them in the pantheon of Hebrews and look at these guys, and you see them, a bunch of flawed people and individuals, but God uses them for something great and amazing. Yeah, Spurgeon's just kind of a modern day of that.
And he's an interesting preacher. His style is very unique. He almost has his own style. He's definitely not like a verse by verse per se guy. He's kind of got his own thing there.
So I'm excited to pick Dr. Allen's brain about that because obviously that's a big thing of Midwestern.
And we talked to him that there are big emphasis on the church, and so we talked to Dr. Allen about what are some of the challenges the church faces in 2020. Obviously, we've had a lot of crazy things hit us, but what are some of those things that we're walking through and we're going to see in the future? So a lot of good things, and we turn into October, and we'll see who's coming up in October.
So make sure you're putting in the comment section about candy corn and this debate about are you pro A couple weeks ago we talked about pumpkin spice. Are you pro or anti pumpkin spice? How many pumpkin spice lattes?
What's coming up next? Candy canes?
Let's not bring up candy canes because that is a trigger warning. I do not accept the whole. It's like when you create a story for something that already exists. What is it?
We do need to talk about on next week's show the Hare household and Christmas, because you guys started celebrating Christmas June 1st? Christmas on June 1st. You guys start early. The tree went up in July. Is the tree up right now?
She put pumpkin stuff is up around the house. That got put up last weekend. Christmas music is continuing to play.
Are there Christmas movies being watched?
Those are year-round.
Okay.
See, here's a debate. So my wife's one of my... Well, maybe I shouldn't say that. We have a debate in our house about what constitutes a Christmas movie.
Okay. If it's on Hallmark, it's a Christmas movie.
See, so for my wife, if there is any sort of related theme of a Christmas tree or anything in there, it's instantly a Christmas movie. Even if it's 2 minutes within the timeline of the movie. To my point, I say then Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Which people disagree with me about. But if it's by the same standard, then I don't mind throwing myself under the bus about one movie. But yes, Christmas music has been playing. I can tell how wonderful a day has been in the Hare household, or difficult a day, depending upon what albums are playing. So if it's just your general Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby, Christmas stuff, okay, we're just, getting through happiness, whatever. If it's the Alabama Christmas album, somebody almost died today. If it's Amy Grant, somebody should have died today, but didn't. So there's a whole rubric.
The barometer. Yeah.
Wow. That's what I walk in.
Well, I think we've gone twice longer than anyone's going to watch this.
No, so thank you for
we should probably sign off.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching, being part of the show. Make sure to drop comments Also, like and share. And we want to hear from you. What do you want to see on the show? Ask us questions. We would love to have an Ask Pastor Dave, Pastor Rob kind of segment in the
That would
show.
be scary.
So yeah, try to stump us, please.
That's not.
Or not. Whatever. What other random questions do you want to know? Please ask us. Thank you so much, guys. We will see you later.
Bye-bye.